It came smelling kind of strange and like plasticky, so I washed it with some fabric softener, and now it's a hug, man. It's just a hug. I'm going to do a photo shoot in it this weekend. I'm just in love with this so much. The quality is astonishing, and it's actually long on me, especially the sleeves, which is rare because I'm very long armed, and it's so cozy and comforting. It's actually the first TS merch I've bought, and it probably won't be the last. It actually really makes me wish she would have done like an All Too Well scarf during the Red era. Hopefully she does that with the re-recordings. I just love, like, it's the cardigan, you know? It's not just Taylor Swift merch, it's like what she sings about. It shows up in the music video, like, it's just iconic. And I'm scared to dry it because I don't want it to like fall apart. It's like real stitching, like it's so thick, and like, just please get yourself one of these. I'm telling you, it's worth it. Hey guys, it's Nicole. Welcome to my channel, or welcome back to my channel. Today's video is an analysis of Taylor Swift's Folklore's album chapters that one of you guys actually requested. So Catalina Oneto, I'm sorry if I'm pronouncing that incorrectly, thank you so much for requesting this video. I'm starting to run out of like folklore specific content, and honestly I feel like I'm like getting a little stale, so this definitely helped. This video is number 3 of my Swiftsgiving series. Swiftsgiving is this little thing I'm doing here on my channel where I post a new Taylor Swift related video every Sunday of November at 11 a.m. Central Standard Time. The 2 Swiftsgiving videos after this are going to be a little bit more experimental because I feel like I've said like about all I can say about folklore. Also, if you have not watched my folklore analysis and interpretations video, you might be a little confused, so if you'd like to, go watch that one and then come back here. And make sure to subscribe and turn your post notifications on so that you get notified every time I make a new Swiftsgiving video. And let's get into the video. So Taylor Swift started dropping these thematic chapters of folklore where she organized different songs on the album into these little like 6-song EPs. She released the first one, I believe, in August, and the last one I think it's September or October. The chapters are the Escapism chapter, the Sleepless Nights chapter, the Saltbox House chapter, and the Yeah, I Showed Up at Your Party chapter. And as I said, each chapter has exactly 6 songs, with some of them being repeated. So starting with the Escapism chapter, I think this one's kind of self-explanatory. It's all of the songs on Folklore that are very escapist themed. The first one is The Lakes. This is a song about Taylor taking herself out of the toxicity of social media and maybe like the press, and she's quite literally escaping to the Lakes District with her boyfriend Joe Alwyn. So this is a literal form of physically escaping and traveling somewhere else. And the next one is 7. This is one of the escapist songs that's like a flashback to Taylor's childhood. It's written similarly in the style of Wildest Dreams, and that she's hoping her childhood friend, whose face she can no longer recall, remembers her in the way things were when she was a child, not as this like perfect celebrity. Sometimes I do the same thing where people that I knew at one point in my life, I hope that they just remember those good times and maybe not as much about the way things are now. This song's escapism is through a recollection of the past and how things were, and maybe wanting to freeze time and move to India forever. Children always have plans of running away together and escaping in that way. So next is Epiphany. This feels like an obvious choice. She's comparing what I think are the dreams of a soldier to the dreams of a frontline healthcare worker. The comparison is most prominent in the chorus, where she sings that these different people are dreaming of some epiphany, just one single glimpse of relief to make some sense of what you've seen. Anyone who's experienced like intense exhaustion or any kind of trauma can definitely relate to kind of escaping through your dreams. Next is Cardigan. This also feels like a form of flashback escapism, kind of like what we see in 7. I believe this song is from Betty's point of view, and if you've watched my Does Betty Take James Back video, you will see that I was already interpreting it as a reflective kind of song that's taking place in the future and reflecting on the past and kind of thinking about why she accepted James' apology when she was young. I think Cardigan is written when Betty is older, and it seems that Betty's doing much better once she eventually leaves James. Maybe this song happens not long after she does that finally for the second time, and she's trying to comfort herself by escaping back into her high school mentality she had of James, saying she was his favorite when she felt like an old cardigan and like maybe she was disliked by people. I think she's kind of like analyzing her psyche in this way and reflecting on her own personal growth. It's a form of self-reflective escapism with a purpose of like understanding herself better, and we love that for Betty. Next is Mirror Ball. I think this fits here in like Taylor sees herself as a mirror ball, someone who can entertain people and get people out on the floor and have a good time. We all know she's also a really good party host. Maybe she's escaped from her own life's personal problems by being such a great entertainer. She's projecting herself for sure in this song, like she's projecting herself onto the mirror ball. Alternatively, it could be another form of escapism from her celebrity status, about how even though she's not as commercially successful as she was with her 1989 era, she's just going to say screw it and run away from all that, to either only focus on music for herself and her true fans, or to focus on her relationship with her boyfriend. I'm still unsure whether this song is directed at Joe or her fans, but it would make sense with it being her fans since the 1989 era was not the best for her mental health. She might be saying like, now that that whole huge spectacular show of my career is over, the disco is burned down, I can stop working myself to death over this idea of what a pop star should be, and like on the hunt for this Grammy that they keep refusing to give her. Red deserved a Grammy. She should have stuck it to the man then. But yeah, I think this is directed at her fans because she has re-recordings coming. I think those are being done for herself and her diehard fans. Like those things aren't to get Grammys and radio play, especially the re-recordings. She definitely has new music on the way because of her new record deal. I think there's at least like 5 more albums or something. And I think her new albums will stop being so huge in the press. Like I anticipate more sudden drops, kind of like Folklore maybe, where she just shows a lot of the recent stuff that she's been working on, where there's not just like this huge PR buildup anymore, and she just kind of gives us the music as she writes stuff that she's proud of. She's escaping from being a mirror ball. She's just going to be a human who likes to songwrite and be entertaining sometimes, which is a really interesting concept because the song starts off with her being a mirror ball. But when you look at it like this, she's escaping from that and giving it up and just going to be herself from now on. Now that the circus part of her career is over and the disco's burned down. I feel like I over-explained that. Okay, so the last song in the escapism chapter is Exile. I'm trying not to let my wild interpretation of the fictional characters of Exile influence this too much, but if that were the case, that would be escapism from a relationship by relating it to the story of Tyler and Sylvia and someone literally being exiled. I think it's a very escapist thing to do, to compare a crumbling relationship to actually being exiled from a country. It's slightly melodramatic. It feels kind of like a coping mechanism. It could be escaping from a bad relationship by making these comparisons between being exiled. And then with the thoughts and the creation of a character who is being exiled, maybe you won't feel so alone, or like you're the only person who's felt this way. Okay, so the next chapter is the Sleepless Nights chapter. These song choices make a lot of sense to me. I think they're some of the saddest on the album, like just the anxiety-filled Sleepless Nights. These are the songs I was listening to that did not allow me to sleep. Exile is also the first one on here. I think it's kind of self-explanatory. If you're going through a breakup like this one, especially where you see them arguing and talking over each other in the bridge, like of course these two people aren't sleeping. Next is Hoax. This feels like it's about a toxic relationship. When thinking of Tyler and Elizabeth, Elizabeth decides she's going to let Tyler back into her life even though it might not be the healthiest choice. Maybe she's losing sleep up to that point of deciding to let him back in, or just spending time with him again in general. Like if you're trying to repair a relationship with someone that has had a bad history, even if it's for the better, you could be thrown back into a toxic mindset and be unable to sleep. Like even if you manage to stop repeating that cycle, the beginning is going to be rough. You're not going to be able to sleep. Okay, so next is My Tears Ricochet. This feels like it could be an escapist song as well, because Taylor's turning her experience with her record label into what I'm seeing as the adult love triangle of the album that I talked about in the analysis video, with the embittered tormentor and the mad woman and an actual death happening. Kind of like in the style of Exile, where you're turning a broken relationship into an exiled man. I can't imagine how Taylor felt when her work got sold to Scooter Braun. Like, I doubt she was sleeping. Or maybe, as far as the fictional story goes, maybe it's like the embittered tormentor finally realizes the gravity of what he's done, and then he finally has some trouble sleeping, some sense of a conscience, and he's never going to sleep through the night again, especially with the mad woman on his tail. We know she's out for blood. Or it could be a sleepless night for Josephine, who I think is the fallen object of obsession, who's being buried at this funeral. She didn't have it in herself to go with Grace. She plans on haunting this tormentor. That's going to be the longest sleepless night of them all, because she'll never wake up. Okay, so next is Illicit Affairs. Do I even need to explain this one? Two people hiding each other, the anxiety of that, the sleepless nights. This is the most haunting song on the album, in my opinion. The guitar, the harmonies, the vocals. The first few weeks after it came out, I was hearing this song in my sleep. Like, this song makes the most sense to me to be in this chapter because I personally experienced the sleepless nights of it. And it's probably my favorite song on the album because I love being miserable. Next is This Is Me Trying. This makes sense with Hoax because I believe those two are connected. If you've watched my interpretation video, this is the reverse side of Hoax where Tyler is standing in Elizabeth's doorway saying, I'm trying. And it takes a lot of humility to admit the things that you regret about yourself or your past behaviors and the things you don't like and you want to fix. Up until Tyler made that decision to go to Elizabeth's doorstep, he probably was sleeping hard on it and not sleeping well. He's taking this step and seeking help. Last is Mad Woman. Oh, we know why Mad Woman's not sleeping. She has plans. She has cannons firing at yachts. Who's got time for sleep when you've got men to sacrifice? This is the most different song in this collection because it's not a tortured sleepless night. It's a plotting sleepless night. It's being at the figurative drawing board and being so jittery from anticipating and planning, and you have to like calm yourself down in order to get some sleep because you have men to step on in the morning. Okay, so next is the Saltbox House chapter. The biggest connection I see with these songs is they all have water in them, or maybe taking place by the beach. Of course, The Last Great American Dynasty is in here. It talks about the Saltbox House. There's also a line about filling a pool with champagne and swimming in it. And next is August. The first line is salt, air, and the rust on your door. This is taking place close to water in the summertime. August Girl is having her summer thing with James. Next is The One, roaring 20s, tossing pennies in the pool, more water, and an idea of reminiscing on a happy time in a relationship, which usually is like you're reminiscing on the summertime while you're in the fall time. Next is 7. I hit my peak at 7 feet in the swing over the creek. More water here too. Lots of summertime vibes like playing with your childhood best friend. Next is Peace. I'm a fire and I'll keep your brittle heart warm if your Cascade ocean wave blues come. Suddenly this summer it's clear. I'd give you my sunshine. Exact same vibes. I think this chapter is very thematically influenced with summers on the beach. She also sings about rain in this song, so there's more water here. It seems like with these songs, there's a lot of nostalgia involved. Like Folklore is such a fall-time album and these songs feel like they're reminiscing on the summertime that just passed. Like the sunshine in the summertime represents the flashback, but the water or the rain kind of represents the current time and has like more of a negative connotation of after things are over in a sense. And the last one is Betty. This one doesn't have any water references, but I think it's in here because it's happening close to the beach that James had a summer thing with August Girl at. He mentions summer in every chorus. I also think it's placed last in the chapter because it's the apology after the summertime shenanigans. And it kind of represents that for all of these situations. Like, there's a sobering moment at the end of all of these songs. For The Last Great American Dynasty, it was Bill dying and the town casting Rebecca out. For August, it was the affair ending. For The One, it was the relationship ending and being haunted by the what ifs. For 7, it was growing up. For Peace, it was Taylor never being able to give Joe peace, even though she's able to give him like everything else. And for Betty, it's James having to apologize at her party at the end of the summer for what he did after his summer thing. Just like a lot of nostalgia vibes in this chapter. Okay, so the final chapter is the Yeah, I Showed Up at Your Party chapter. At first I thought these were all the fun, lively songs of Folklore, but The One is included again, so that kind of ruins that. They're all about parties in one way or another though. It starts off with the live version of Betty being played at the ACMs. Of course, Betty already has James showing up at her party, but when Taylor sings it live at the ACMs, it's kind of like Taylor showing up at country music's party, even though she was gone for such a long time to do pop music. It's like a personal touch to start this chapter off. Next is the repeat of The One. This is like someone wishing they could do what James did. I think the object of the song might be getting married with the line, roseate flowing with your chosen family, and it would have been sweet if it could have been me, or whatever the line is. Or maybe it's like the narrator wishes they could be like the girl from Speak Now, where they show up to the wedding, the party, and say their piece. Okay, so next is Mirror Ball. This is like a sad party that Taylor is the host of and that she's tired of being the host of. So once the disco's burned down, she's only going to be worrying about herself and her true fans and her personal life. She's leaving this party to show up at her own smaller private party with only like her fans, secret sessions anyone, and her friends and family. Next is The Last Great American Dynasty. Rebecca knows a thing or two about parties. She had several and was someone who was frowned upon. And then Taylor kind of shows up at this party and takes Rebecca's place. And now she's the one who's gossiped about in the same way. Next is Invisible String. I think this is comparing a sudden relationship forming due to a twist of fate to crashing a party. Jo kind of crashed her party of failed relationships They both showed up into each other's lives, parties, by this invisible string, tying them together, and it's a super happy song. Like, I see why this one is included. It has really like happy party vibes. And last is Cardigan. I like that they're ending with this because it's Betty taking back the James narrative that the chapter starts with. He showed up at her party, and this is her response later in life, that she shouldn't have let him into said party, and now she's going to continue with her happy life and have many, many more parties that James is not invited to. Maybe that's what's happening. I definitely don't think it's coincidence that it starts with Betty and ends with Cardigan, which is the response. Also, I wanted to point out, Taylor calling this chapter the "Yeah, I showed up at your party" chapter instead of the "I showed up at your party" chapter has this sense of audacity behind it, like someone dared to crash a party, like Rebecca living in that house despite the neighbors hating her, James crashing Betty's party, Taylor coming back to country music even after people might have talked some. The one maybe relating to crashing a wedding. Mirror ball could be like the media being shocked that she's not playing into their toxic games anymore. An invisible string kind of has a sense of audacity too, like you walked into my life and you changed everything in a good way, but still, the audacity. And Cardigan feels like a putting your foot down song to stop all of the party crashing because she was the original host. There are a million different theories or interpretations for why she grouped these songs together. I highly recommend you guys go look on Reddit if you want to hear more crazy theories and more reaching. I read something cool about the Saltbox house chapter being about how Saltbox houses are like 2 sections on the bottom story and then 1 section on the top, so it's like smaller at the top. And so that's kind of like there's 3 sections of the house, which is like there are 3 sides to every story, yours, mine, and the truth. And I do think some of the narrators on Folklore are unreliable, for sure, but I don't think the songs in that chapter have the unreliable narrators in them. There are others though, they're just not in that group, so that might just be coincidence. As always, let me know your own theories down in the comments below. I'd love to see your interpretations of these chapters. There are so many angles you can look at this from, and I will see you guys next Sunday with another Taylor Swift video. I hope you all have an amazing day. Bye guys. I know that we would run away to an island in the sun where the palm